Board meeting, our work session for June 10th. I'll call the meeting to order and request a roll call, please.
Mr. Newmoff is absent. Ms. Kalinowski is absent. Mr. Bush?
Here.
Vice President Darrow?
Here.
President McClelland?
Here. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. To tonight's agenda, Mr. Sawyers, any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Mr. McClellan, we have one correction. There will not be a presentation for the technology plan this evening. Mr. Voss had a family medical emergency and is not here.
Okay.
So we are removing that from the agenda. Number 3, letter B.
Okay, so with that correction, I'd entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Moved. Second.
Mr. Bush, Mr. Darrow, roll call, please.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Vice President Darrow?
Yes.
President McClelland?
Yes. So that takes us to discussion items. And first is our secondary curriculum update.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome Dr. Hamilton and several others, but Shirley is going to start the presentation and then she will introduce everyone else that's participating. As part of our review for 2018-2019, we do secondary curriculum review. Dr. Hamilton's presenting this evening. Mr. Memory, the Director of Elementary Education, will present at the next board meeting for the elementary. Dr. Hamilton and others, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Sawyers, Superintendent Sawyers, Mr. McClellan, board members. Thank you for having us tonight. And we do have a cast of thousands, but that's because everyone has an investment in this and they all wanted to participate. So I think it's really neat that we have teachers and administrators who don't necessarily need to be here tonight, who are here to present because they're passionate about what they're going to talk about. So I think that's pretty exciting. So we will have Donna LeBeau, as the middle school principal, will talk about middle school initiatives. Ben Arthurs is here as a high school teacher to talk about English language arts initiatives that occurred this year. Then Ken Kramer, the high school principal, will talk about other initiatives at the high school this year. Sarah Schoen, who is a high school math teacher extraordinaire, will talk about, and so are the other teachers. Don't take anything from that. So Sarah will talk about CPM and the impact it's had on her students and on her. Erin Jones, then our secondary math instructional leader, will talk about some data that we have, preliminary kind of data that we have that we can share. So we'll have both qualitative and quantitative data to share. And then Katie Morgan will talk about, as the assistant principal of high school, talk about Noble Academy, and then we'll talk about next steps. So I'm going to start with a few items. First of all, you've seen this chart before. It's our 5-year curriculum planning cycle. And we had to revise it because the Ohio Department of Education kind of moved ahead on some things and then announced that they were going to do the fine arts curriculum revisions next year for implementation for 2021. So we had to change some things. We were in the process of doing music and high school, of reviewing music and high school drama this year, K through 12 music. And when ODE made this announcement, we kind of stopped because it was mid-year and we weren't finished with the process. And so then we moved them to 2021 as a result of that. So that's what that highlighted thing means. And then we were also going to do science next year and then social studies the next year. And ODE kind of did both science and social studies together. And so again, the implementation is supposed to be in 2021. So we're going to go ahead and do both science and social studies K through 12. It's a major undertaking, but we're going to try to do that next year, so that we're ready for the 2021 school year with the implementation. We're also going to do wellness and physical education, wellness and health next year as well. So a little bit of a change, just wanted to update you on that. And as ODE changes then and makes revisions, then so do we in terms of our planning. Still on a 5-year cycle though, and so that's what we need, where we need to be. Then this is the curriculum framework. You've seen it before. This is what we use for grades 7 through 12 to document what we're doing in terms of our curriculum audits and revisions. And so we have this for math, who already completed their curriculum frameworks for all the math classes, and we just completed English Language Arts this year. So we have all of those documents. We have a couple of people who are just finishing up a few tweaks this summer, but for the most part, that's all done as well. So this is the framework that we use, just to remind you of what it looks like. Then the next thing is Donna is going to talk about middle school curriculum initiatives. This is the book.
And so the framework that Dr. Hamilton showed you is a living, breathing document. So as the teachers make revisions in ELA, they go back to that document and make those revisions. We did review and refine our ELA 7th and 8th, and we are adding, and we reviewed 8+, and then we are adding for the 1920 school year English 7+. We did focus on argument writing. We used Hillick's book as our way to focus on argument writing, providing PD to our science teachers, our ELA teachers, and our social studies teachers. We also expanded the use of Socratic Seminar into other content areas, including science and social studies. Our summer reading requirement for this summer is Resistance for our 7th graders and A Night Divided for our 8th graders. And that is, the author is Jennifer Nielsen, and she'll visit the middle school on September 17th. We provided targeted instruction in ELA and math to 60+ students. We continue to provide common planning time for core content teachers, as well as vertical alignment time with our high school colleagues, and during our February PD day with our 6th grade colleagues. We have had ongoing use of the East E3 lab. Our 8th graders did the Easy Scopes in the E3 lab, and our 7th graders participated in the iNaturalist species and inventory program. NAM Tech teachers created modules for our students so they could learn at their own pace, and they are using those modules to problem solve, create solutions, and use the tech to enhance learning in other areas. Things that they learned in tech were used also in Spanish classes, in art, and in science.
Good evening.
Hello.
Superintendent Sawyers and board. Hello. Again, thank you for allowing me to be here. My name is Ben Arthurs, and I'm representing at least 15 department members and hundreds of man hours of work. This is a fantastic opportunity, so thank you for allowing me that. The ELA course of study audit and revision with grades 9 through 12, humanities, English 10, American literature, and British literature. What really set the framework up perfectly for this was our vertical alignment meetings. Those were done grades 7 through 12. Really set the foundation for us to proceed forward with the ODE changes that Shirley mentioned earlier. When we reviewed the data to identify strengths and weaknesses, and then we reviewed the model curricula from the ODE, it truly assisted the teachers in aligning the Common Core standards, best practices, and research-based methodology to prepare us for this collegial work. Humanities began the work in the summer of 2018 and 19. The rest of the department began work during this school year, late start, professional development meetings. We were given pull-out days for 10 and 12. English 12 met after the seniors had left, in addition to 2 days last Monday and Tuesday for the continued summer work. There was definitely a focus on argumentative writing to, again, align ourselves with the middle school, implementation of Turnitin software, and then, of course, the writing lab intervention, and also other intervention classes that we did. Also worth mentioning that the CAP dual enrollment courses are still in progress, pending due to the history department. We were waiting for that to get back to the history and the science next year. Honors English 10 classes focused on skills related to reading, writing, speaking, and listening, grammar, and by the way, of studying 5 anchor texts. compared our student survey feedback results to determine units and assessments to determine student engagement and how to modify the curriculum moving forward. All assessments designed and aligned with Common Core standards. Units emphasize textual depth and breadth to encompass art, music, fiction, and nonfiction. Units are developed around essential key questions, and final summative assessments are based on those questions to demonstrate their understanding of the units. And of course, all summative assessments utilize common language and common scoring rubric. Also, key highlights for AP English 11. The College Board just released an update for AP Language and Composition during the 2019 and 2020 school year. The curriculum framework for this course was developed utilizing the College Board framework, and for this course it was developed utilizing the tandem with the Aligned 9-unit framework with language and composition, the textbook that we actually use for the course. These updates necessitated a reorganization of the course content and a change of focus based on College Board updates and understanding. All of the readings and activities and assessments are designed to align with College Board and Common Core standards. Thank you.
Superintendent Sawyers, President McClellan, and the rest of the board, thank you for this opportunity. I want to talk to you guys a little bit more about some other high school curriculum initiatives that we've had this year and kind of things moving forward. Math Intervention Learning Centers and our math labs. These are our intervention learning centers offered to students who struggle in Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. This year we served 21 students in these small groups with teachers. It's embedded into the day, essentially to double up their time in Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 to build up those skills, those foundational skills that they can't get to when they interact with the normal curriculum in a typical Algebra 1 or Geometry class. Math labs and writing labs are offered every single class period for students. They're embedded into the teacher's day, and students can go to individual teachers as needed during their study centers to get help with homework or, again, to build up some foundational skills. This year, we use map testing in algebra and geometry. We tested 3 times this year in September, in January, and again in May to project growth and identify students at risk of those potentially not going to be successful on the Ohio State test. So we used that 3 times this year. As shared by Ms. LeBeau, we had vertical alignment team meetings 7 through 12. We had the focus book was the focus of our vertical alignment team meetings, and we met for 50 minutes during all 6 of our professional development days. A Global Scholars Diploma program is something new at the high school. This year we had our first year of implementation, which is your planning year. Next year, we are going into recruitment and going to start a club with our 10th graders. We're seeking 25 students to join the Global Scholars Program, diploma program. It's a 3-year program. Sophomore year is a club. Junior year, you take an online course. And senior year will be part of your experience of senior seminar, where you can earn a Global Scholars Diploma in the state of Ohio. School to career programs, very exciting. Some things that we've been doing this year. Myself and Mrs. Morgan had the opportunity to present to 9 different businesses of the Beauty Park in March about programs related to pre-apprenticeship programs, internships, work study, and really the opportunity to build a industry credentialed program at the high school. We later then met with myself, Mr. Sawyers, and and Dr. Hamilton, and we met with Eastland Career Center about the opportunity for cybersecurity and what that looks like for a satellite program. We could build this as an industry credential program. And as you may recall, that's a 3rd option for students to seek a diploma. So outside of getting your 18 points, if you get 12 industry credential points and pass the ACT work keys, you can also earn your diploma. We currently don't have that option at the high school. Students that attend New Albany can only earn that by going to Eastland Fairfield. So that's something that we are exploring and have been exploring this year. We will be presenting to Leadership New Albany this Wednesday on the same opportunity to work with us for work study and internships. It's comprised of a few different leaders. We were specifically at the business park in March, and this is some leaders a little bit closer to our school, I think. Some business leaders we're going to try to partner with this Wednesday. There's ongoing use of the E3 lab. This year, we partnered with the City of New Albany Food Bank, and Amatic. They make different types of packaging for Limited. COSI, Columbus Green Building Forum, and Columbus State. Two things I really want to highlight from that. Through the COSI Festival, we had the opportunity to have astronaut Catherine Sullivan, first woman to do a walk in space. She presented to about 500 of our science students at the end of April. And Columbus Green Building Forum hosted a week-long environmental robotics camp over spring break that we opened up to 6th through 11th grade students. So those are some things that are going on at the high school. Last thing I really want to highlight that's not up here, advanced placement this year saw some great growth in the amount of programs that we offer, as well as number of students testing. This year we offered a total of 19 courses. We had 544 students enrolled in those courses, and we gave 965 AP tests, which is the highest we've ever given at the high school. Those are my updates. Thank you.
See, we have a well-oiled machine going on. So I'm going to just talk about some general items dealing with college preparatory math, CPM implementation. As you know, this was our first year for 6th through 8th grade math, pre-algebra A, pre-algebra B, algebra 1, geometry, and statistics. Next year, we will be implementing algebra 2. We didn't want to do everything all at once because it was a little too much. And then the following year for 2021, we'll be implementing pre-calculus, and we're hoping to be able to do calculus implementation as well. Then here are some other things that took place this year related to CPM. We had 7 people, I believe, attend the National CPM Conference in San Francisco. We had 4 from the high school, 2 from the middle school, and 1 from the intermediate. And it was so exciting for them to attend this. And they came back so energized and excited about CPM. And they actually then, Aaron Jones, our math leader, actually set up a Google Doc so that they could put information into the Google Doc through presentations or other information they wanted, highlights that they wanted to share. And then we did a vertical team alignment meeting where Sarah and the high school people and Aaron and the middle school and the other people shared their highlights with the whole math department, because obviously everybody couldn't go. So we actually did that as well. And they're so excited that we have Sarah and some others are actually proposing, they've sent in a proposal for this year's conference, and hopefully that will be accepted, and then they'll be able to go to the national conference again free of charge or on CPM. We also had 2 math teachers who were chosen to be future CPM teacher leaders. They participated in a training in May in St. Louis. And this summer they are co-facilitating the Teays Valley workshops. Teays Valley is implementing next year. And so they're doing phase 1 workshops. And Sarah Schoen was one of those, and Megan Laboon was the other teacher leader. So we're really excited. This doesn't happen, this does not happen where your district. Right now, there are only 3 trainers, I guess, in the whole central Ohio area, and all 3 of them are from Westerville. Westerville was the initial district to implement CPM. So we're really excited that probably 5 years later now, nobody else, out of Gahanna and Worthington and Buckeye Valley and Westerville, all the other districts, that we now have two people who were chosen in our first year of implementation to be teacher leaders, and they're going to help train other teachers in CPM. So it's really very exciting for us. Then we also had one high school math teacher chosen for the Teacher Research Corps, and again, that was Sarah. And Sarah Schoen is going to, see what I mean? She's extraordinaire. She is going to a meeting in Arizona for training on this, and basically she can say more about it if she wants to, but she's going to be doing some innovative, they're going to have her do research in her classroom that she then can share in terms of how it goes and for the implementation. We also started a Central Ohio CPM collaborative. which is pretty exciting. We have 6 districts. I mentioned some of them: Gahanna, Worthington, Westerville, Buckeye Valley. Taze Valley is now involved, New Albany. And so we are now meeting several times throughout the year. We started in January, and so we met 3 times this year. And as a result of that, we were able to, again, something that doesn't happen very often, we were able to host and sponsor the Phase 2 training. Phase 1 is the content with new teachers. Phase 2 then is for teachers who have implemented for a year. So we did Phase 2 training last week in this room with a trainer from Westerville. And again, it was very exciting. I think all of the high school teachers attended, a number of middle school teachers and intermediate teachers as well. We had intervention specialists who attended, and they've also attended Phase 1 training at Taze Valley last week and this week. So we were able to host this because of this collaborative, because we had so many people who were interested in this. So we had a group of 35 teachers. And then we also had an administrative or leadership training last week as well, hosted here in New Albany, sponsored by CPM. We had a trainer from Michigan come and support this. Usually those trainings are only held in Michigan or Salt Lake City. So we're very fortunate to be able to offer this. And again, it's because of this collaborative. We had 40 administrators from throughout Central Ohio, administrators and curriculum leaders and coaches attend this. And it's very, very exciting. So we're really excited to be involved in the national and regional efforts, and we want to continue to do that. And we will continue to meet with our collaborative group next year, and we have some really neat things going on, some neat things planned. So without further ado, I will introduce Sarah Schoen, who's going to talk about a qualitative look at the impact on students and staff.
Hi, thank you Superintendent Sawyers and board members for the opportunity to share my passion with you this evening. My name is Sarah Schoen, and I was invited here tonight to share with you the impact that CPM has had on me, my students, and my colleagues here at New Albany High School. As I organized my thoughts and prepared for this evening's presentation, I wondered, how can I truly express to you how much CPM has changed my professional life? How can I truly express to you why I think CPM is the most powerful way to teach and learn math? The answer for me is twofold: pedagogy and passion. First, to find best practice in mathematics education, I always turn to NCTM, the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. NCTM is the leading mathematics education organization in the country, and they've outlined 6 guiding principles for learning and teaching that provide the foundation for effective mathematics learning. And I've highlighted at the bottom, specifically, learners should have experiences that enable them to develop metacognitive awareness of themselves as learners, thinkers, and problem solvers, and to learn to monitor their learning and performance. Through CPM, these principles are in action every single day in my classroom and in my colleagues' classrooms. And second, to find what energizes a classroom, what makes for the best possible learning and leadership experience for students, I always turn to my students. But instead of me simply telling you that this is true, I have actual evidence. Evidence that shows these principles behind me are in action and that are strengthening all aspects of our students' math experiences. My student responses to in-depth reflection questions I pose to them at the end of this school year showcase without any doubt that the impact of CPM on our high school math students and teachers is profound. So I asked my students, my honors geometry end of year survey questions. I asked them all kinds of different questions. And as you can see, one of them says this: you've been a member of 11 teams this year. Do you feel it's valuable to work and learn in teams? If you were applying for a job tomorrow and the employer asked you for your experience and preference working in teams, what would you say? And as you can see, I have more evidence than I have time to share with you, but I wanted to highlight a few of my favorite responses that really blew me away. One student said, I feel that it is valuable to work and learn in teams. Nobody is ever an outcast, left in the dust, suffering in silence. Sometimes students are too nervous to ask questions in front of the whole class. However, if we work in teams, their struggles are in a smaller group of people and they get the help they need. At an interview, I say I prefer to work in teams because working with others helps one realize their inner strengths and see new perspectives, expanding their own knowledge. I have dozens and dozens of responses just like this that took my breath away. but I only have a few minutes. One of the next questions that I ask my students is, what was the biggest thing you've learned from your teams this year? I learned that teamwork is very essential, not just to CPM, but to life in general. The teams taught me that by taking in others' ideas, you were able to understand topics more in detail. I asked, what do you think is the most important thing you learned about math or about yourself this year that you will take with you next year? The most important thing I learned about math this year would be you can't master anything on the first day. It might take a few days or a couple of minutes for you to get the hang of something, and that's completely fine. Positive personal progress is the key to math. CPM has had a profound impact on our NAHS math students. And as I shared a few things, the bottom one is probably my favorite. It's hard to put it into words, but I feel like CPM grew more than just our math skills. It helped us inside and outside the classroom by showing leadership and cooperation skills. And as you can imagine, that's really all that we can ask for. That's what NCTM wants, and that's what we're having in our classrooms right now. In my CPM classroom, my students work in teams from bell to bell every single day, collaboratively solving intricate problems that spiral through the geometry curriculum, all the while building their personal mathematics and leadership skills, resulting in a complete lifelong math learner. Lastly, I was so fortunate, along with a few of my colleagues, to go to the National CPM Conference held this past February in San Francisco, like Dr. Hamilton talked about. I was so blown away by all we learned from the incredible math teachers I met across the country that I integrated tools I learned that weekend directly into my classroom the very day I returned. CPM has energized my department so much that a small handful of us has even submitted a proposal to present at the conference next year. A team of 4 of us worked together to pool what excited us, what continues to push us, and what we value that we feel we can share with teachers around the country. CPM is truly teachers teaching teachers, and we are so lucky to be a part of this revolutionary mathematics program. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Superintendent Sawyers and the board members, for allowing us to come back this evening and talk about some more things about CPM with you. Thank you, Sarah, for that great explanation, some great qualitative data, giving us some student insight that is really relevant to looking at this program overall. My name is Erin Jones. I'm the secondary math instructional leader here. And I was invited to come back to you guys with a little bit of quantitative data. I know we're still fairly early in this process of implementing this new curriculum, but we do have a little bit of quantitative data that we would like to share with you. So this first slide of data shows our math data for Algebra 1 and Geometry from this school year. So from our fall administration to our winter administration. And what this shows to me, what I look at when I see this data here, is we're trending upward. And that's exactly what we want to see. Exactly like what Sarah said with our students, and the qualitative data is they want to see individual growth. Well, quantitatively, this shows us that they did grow. They did learn. I would even say they learned a lot. Those numbers, there's significant growth there. It is the first year that the high school administered it to all of their Algebra 1 and Geometry students, so we can't look back and compare that to previous years because there wouldn't be valid data there for us to do that. So that's why I only have the 1 year of data, but there is significant growth there in our Algebra 1 and Geometry scores, and that growth is definitely encouraging. So the second thing that I have here is looking at our Math 6, 7, and 8 data, and I was able to pull last year's data, so we had a bit of comparison there because these 3 grade levels have given it the last couple years, and so we can look at that growth from year to year. The 7th and 8th grade math students did not take a spring administration this year. That's why that bar is missing. So when I looked at this, I primarily looked at the fall and winter data for a comparison purpose, but again, trending upward. The growth is very encouraging here as well. The other thing that I saw was looking at the nationally normed percentile rankings. The 6th grade, if you look at the winter scores, I don't have it up here, but the 6th grade Their winter data nationally went from the 81st percentile up to the 84th percentile. So that is definitely a strong growth measure there. The 7th grade, their winter test session went from the 70th percentile to the 73rd percentile nationally. And 8th grade went from the 59th percentile to the 61st percentile nationally. So strong growth overall if we look at some of the quantitative data.
Good evening, Superintendent Sawyers, Board President McClellan, and fellow board members. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to reflect and kind of let you know how the pilot year of this thing we call Noble Academy went at the high school this year. To finish the year, just some information I wanted to report back to you. We finished with 23 students enrolled in the program that we said had a maximum capacity of 30. 14 of those 23 were seniors. 13 of the 14 were on time or early graduates. Our one non-graduate was due to attendance, and that one non-graduate has also expressed an interest in possibly being a summer graduate and is currently working on coursework. 2 of the 13 were early graduates that you approved in January or March. One was able to go directly into the workforce with something they're passionate about, and the other one enrolled in some Columbus State courses to start working on coursework. So that was exciting for us. We had a 92% successful course completion through using our online platform of Apex, this meaning that 92% of kids successfully completed all of the courses. One of the pieces I'm most excited about, Mr. Kramer mentioned earlier the presentation we did in the beauty park in March, and sort of something that's come out of that is this foundation in a partnership with Discover Card. They have a program called the Discover College Commitment, and so from that presentation, Ken and I have been able to talk to a rep from Discover Card who came and presented to several of our students from Noble Academy about not only work placement for next year, but also continuing coursework online and with some financial benefits to the students and their families, and something we'll look to expand upon next year. So that's a pretty new and exciting opportunity for us here at the high school. We also had a successful implementation of a Build Skills Own Your R program that we worked on with our Concord prevention clinicians and Healthy New Albany. Overall, when we looked at reasons for enrollment for our students, particularly in incidents of discipline and attendance entries, we saw just much better data for these kids as far as not having any discipline entries. Attendance was less of an issue. We weren't sending home those House Bill 410 letters to parents that they love to receive. So that was all very positive. And then for the social, emotional, and mental health piece, students and families were both surveyed periodically throughout the year, and the self-reporting on social, emotional health and wellness was also improved for those students. In thinking about 1920, we currently have 14 students enrolled and committed to attend Noble Academy. 3 additional applications actually came in that I will be processing over the course of the next week in meeting with families and interviewing them. Another challenge that posed itself this year is that we didn't have science support in the classroom all the time. Our students were seeking out science teachers for things like chemistry and physics that are sort of like those niche science classes that you really need somebody who's well versed in that content. So we are going to have science support in the classroom next year because our students want to have those 4 years of science when they leave here, which is great. So we want to make sure we're supporting that. Based on some parent feedback, we're also implementing an incentive and reward system, modeling a little bit after the middle school focus cards. We're going to be doing Own Your R cards to also send home some qualitative data to our parents as well, in addition to the coaches report they get from Apex. Give them some notes to hang on the fridge along with the numbers and bar graphs they get from Apex. We also want to continue to refine our Build Skills, Own Your R curriculum, possibly by tailoring and responding to student-reported needs. I've been talking with Concord a little bit about, since we do have such a small group of students we're working with, letting them give us some feedback on things they want some help with or feel like they would like to learn about before they leave us at New Albany for college or career. And lastly, we want to continue to enhance our work and career partnerships, including the presentation on Wednesday to some community members. So I look forward to seeing that grow. Thank you.
So thank you to all of our presenters. This gives you a brief outlook at some of the things that we did this year, our current, it's a current update, a high-level current update. So what's next? So our next steps, as I already mentioned, we're going to do science and social studies curriculum review and alignment. As part of that, with social studies, we're also going to be looking at the progression of courses. So that's something else that we'll look at next year. We'll be looking at the health and wellness curriculum for review purposes. Then we will refine the work of our CPM implementation. We'll have ongoing professional development that Erin and Sarah and some of the others are going to hopefully help us lead next year. We're going to do the Algebra 2 CPM implementation. We're going to restructure our middle school math intervention. Donna already has ideas of what she's going to do with that, and the ELA intervention as well. Educational, we're going to have a new educational assistant for instructional support for math and ELA at both the middle school and the high school. High school will be using Achieve 3000 as part of that program. We also are going to eliminate high school Algebra 1 and Geometry Connections classes. We evaluated those this year and looked at map data and looked at progress and decided that that isn't the direction that we want to go. So those students will be in collab classes, and we think that's a much better way to do things. We're also going to restructure our high school math ILCs. We're going to implement as Donna mentioned, the middle school 7+ course. We're going to implement the Global Scholars Level 1 events and activities. They will have 4 activities that they will participate in and reflect upon for next year. And Jenny Sage is going to work with that. We're going to add middle school and high school speech and debate supplemental positions and help us enhance our civil discourse initiatives. We'll have ongoing support for the E3 Learning Lab and Fab Lab projects. Hopefully, we're going to have the construction of an E3 deck here in the near future, we hope. There will be a potential partnership with National Geographic through Nat Geo. Then the partnership with Columbus Green Building Forum for a robotics camp later in August, we hope. And then based on survey results, we surveyed for vertical alignment team meetings. We're going to restructure those a little bit and have more of a structured focus there. And then at the high school, we're going to implement teacher-based teams. And so those are some of the things you can look forward to, that we'll all look forward to for next year. So at this time, I bring the whole group up, and you can ask a question of anyone that you so desire. So come on up.
I'm sure you have questions, right? Would you like to start? You can go first. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I'll just start with CPM. So obviously, congratulations on a great first year. Sounds like a lot of strong momentum. I guess I'm curious to know, though, with all the good discussion we've been having on our campus and with partners within, the greater Columbus area, what opportunities do you think still exist for us to do even better?
To continue to grow, you mean in our CPM? Well, this was our first year of implementation, so all of our Algebra 1 and Geometry courses implemented this, and that was a drastic change in how we had been implementing, my prior years in my Glencoe teaching. As we progress, as we move into Algebra 2, that curriculum is so incredible that the kids will now have an algebra, a geometry, and Algebra 2 foundation in this course. And then with pre-calculus and calculus, the level of thinking that they do on this curriculum on a daily basis is unlike anything that they've ever seen. They're working through basic concepts hidden inside of giant problem-solving situations that are real-life based. So they continue to grow as learners and as leaders in their communication and their math skills as we go. So I think that this is the hardest year we've had, trying to get it going, and it's been as such a success as it has been. So every year next is going to be even more strengthening in our skills as implementers.
Were there, I guess I was understanding though that you're working with other districts as well, or has that not happened yet?
We are.
It is.
Can I add, I'll add to that for you.
I was just wondering where
yeah.
you've collaborated and if there's things that you've learned from other districts that we think we can employ here to just further accelerate the, the positive
sure.
successes.
Yeah, there's definitely two things we have kind of in the works for next school year. One of which is we're going to try to invite teachers somehow to our CPM collaborative. Not totally sure on the timing and how that's actually going to work, but to try to pull maybe, for instance, a couple Algebra 1 teachers together from some of these districts, to put them in a room, give them some sort of initiative for that hour or two, whatever we can manage to get, for them to actually work together. Maybe one of them has something to bring to the table that they could share with the other teachers that then they could disperse back to those districts. So that is definitely in the works. Where I'm working with Tom Kazmarek over in Worthington to try to get that kind of put into place and try to see what we can do to get some teachers together. It was great to sit on that as a collaborative team with different curriculum and different coaches from around the districts. But we felt there could be a really strong benefit to having some of the teachers part of that conversation as well. So that's one thing we're looking at. The other thing we're working on trying to do, we had like maybe 40 administrators on Tuesday. We had a lot of administrators upstairs on Tuesday. And we're looking at trying to get a follow-up to that conversation. So our trainer for that was phenomenal, had more resources than we had time in our 7 hours together to look at. And so we're working on getting a follow-up to that based on stuff that we learned, stuff that administrators and coaches in these districts are able to implement, and then kind of reconvene next May or June to try to build on the stuff that we tried based on some of the new stuff we just got.
That's great. And one last question.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it rolled out pretty smoothly for everyone, but were there some teachers that struggled with the change in curriculum? And was there any learnings there, again, that we can apply to the new, was it Algebra 2?
Algebra 2.
Yeah, I think anytime you roll out a new curriculum, it's a learning curve for everybody. It's a learning curve for the students. It was a learning curve for the teachers. And then throughout the year, we kind of learned it was a learning curve for our administrators as well, just because going in the classroom, it looks a lot different than it had looked in the past. So it was kind of different for everybody on all three levels. And we are definitely learning from each other. One thing that I was able to do in my role as a coach this year was get other teachers into other teachers' classrooms, which was, I think, something that was really beneficial. So I could say, hey, why don't I teach your class this class period and you go see so-and-so teach the same exact lesson and try to learn from them doing something like that. I was in classrooms a lot doing some co-teaching with teachers to try to give them different ideas. A lot of this curriculum is questioning and making the students do the thinking and not spitting out answers to our students. So some teachers that comes super, super naturally. Some teachers that was totally foreign, and we had a lot of learning. So we were able to do that learning together. Definitely.
Thank you.
My turn, I guess. No, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if Dr. Hamilton were you going to add something?
No, I was just going to say, but it was back to Mr. Bush's original question, that what we would do with the consortium is sometimes we would pose a problem or an issue, and everyone would bring their ideas as to how we might resolve that. For example, we might talk about our gifted students, and we had Kim Frazier who was a gifted coordinator in Gahanna as part of our collaborative, and she would talk about what they've done in Gahanna and how they've dealt with different things. Or we talk about parent meetings, and everybody would come and bring their ideas for parent meetings. So I don't think that anybody's doing anything better than we are. I think that's safe to say, Erin, right? Yeah. I don't think anybody's doing anything better than we are, but it does give, because I think in our first year, we've done a lot, and we've hit a home run, I think, in many ways. But at any rate, we did share ideas together, and I thought Erin did a great job of answering your second question. So unless you have something else, go ahead. Yes.
Yep.
When it first started, we certainly heard from some parents who were very, very concerned. How has that continued in any way? Do you still have some parents that just aren't on board with it and just don't want it to be?
Very, very few. I started early on saying, if you have anybody that has concerns, give them 2 minutes with me. That's how I spent conference night. That's how I spent open house night, begging people to come into my room and watch and see how it transforms you. And it takes about 2 minutes with me and a parent to decide, oh, wow, this is what my students should be doing. The way they develop as leaders and not just math students truly would blow you away. I'd invite any of you to come and see the room next year. It's not like anything you've ever seen. So by midway through the year, I mean, at the very latest, we were all in. The parents were all in from what I could see. And any concerns that they had were understandable because this looks so different. But very easily were we able to persuade them because of what the student is getting from the classroom, bell to bell. So early on, yes, a lot of concerns, a lot of nerves. It was scary and it was new for all of us, but it blew them away by the end.
Ultimately, I'm driven by outcomes. That's not a surprise to anyone, I'm sure. So the test data is important. I understand the value of the qualitative feedback because it helps you see how people perceive what's going on. But ultimately, and particularly with math, it's, you either know how to do it or you don't. And you can either apply the concepts to a problem on a test or you can't. And so the progress that you saw that you reported out in terms of the quantitative results, does that compare to, particularly between fall and spring, how does that compare to previous years, fall and spring? Are we seeing more growth than we saw in previous years? I saw the one chart, but that's just I think it was just 1 year. So I mean, how does it really compare in terms of the outcome, in terms of student learning from the previous programming?
Just to offer just a glimpse of your question. I know you said fall and spring. We got the beginnings of our OST data back, and as I looked back at my 2 sections of honors geometry classes, let me pause. I just finished year 15 of teaching. So here, all of those years have been here at New Albany High School. So I've taught honors geometry for, I think, 13 of those 15 years. So I have a lot of experience with this course. And so when I look now at my OST data, all but 2 of my students either met or exceeded their growth. So from that, just that brief, tiny glimpse that I've able to have, there has been positive motion in their growth as well. And when you looked at the data of, I can say from my test scores, from my tests that I have written for 15 years, I'm writing harder tests than I ever have. The breadth of questions, the in-depth questions that we have through CPM, I've made harder tests than I ever have. And my averages have at very worst been the exact same as before. Almost all of my tests, the averages have been higher on a harder compared assessment. So just to give you that. I don't know if that answers everything.
We could talk geometry. I was one of those weird kids that actually liked proofs in school. So
That explains a lot.
And then about the math data that was up there, the Algebra 1 and geometry side only had this year's information because high school only gave it to all of their Algebra 1 and geometry students this school year. So we don't have comparison data at all to look at. And then I only gave you 2 years for the math 6, 7, and 8 because the tests changed the year before that. So that data isn't a good comparison either.
yeah, it was more, I understood that, but it was more about the growth from fall to spring that I was curious. That might be comparable.
The 7th and 8th graders that chart didn't actually take a spring assessment. They only took a fall and winter this year. So there isn't a comparison there. Yeah. So, yep.
We'll incorporate into the spring report, or the OST reporting that we'll do prior to the start of the school year. So as we get into this disaggregation of the data, which we're doing now, and looking at, to Sarah's point, individual student level data at the teacher level, and then at the course level, we'll report that to the board when we go through the state test results. But as I indicated in the email I sent, everything from the state is still preliminary and remains entirely subject to change. When you look at their website every single day, you find the next magic surprise of what's changed. And that will continue for the next 6+ weeks. So we will incorporate that into the comparison now in preparation for the board report out in the fall.
Just to make sure I'm not confused by all the different testing, the math.
That's MAP.
It's MAP, okay.
That's MAP.
So that is for.
That's MAP.
Yeah, all right.
That's for the Brit scores.
Tests.
Right.
Our kids against other kids.
Other kids throughout the United States.
In that grade level.
In that grade level.
In that content.
academic. So
Yeah.
it used to be our 7th and 8th grader in algebra, everybody took at 6+, but then 2 years ago, they can take algebra 1
Right.
and geometry. So now it teases even that out.
Right, because MAP has also changed.
Okay.
Of course it
Good.
is. Everything changes.
Regarding the curriculum framework, are teachers required to use the framework as the guaranteed and viable curriculum for all students?
Yes, that's what they're supposed to do.
Yes.
That's why we're developing.
They are writing it together.
Yes.
During their common planning time with common formative assessments that they use.
And at first, they kind of are resistant, but once they do it, they say, and Ben can maybe attest to this as well, that it was very helpful and valuable and brings people together and aligns people, so. No, you don't have to, but if you want to say something.
Yeah, absolutely. As Shirley mentioned, usually new initiatives get some pushback from the start. But after we dug in and we all had the same homogeneous framework to look at, especially when we had the foreign language department started this off first to give us kind of an idea what they were doing. When the introduction of the humanities teachers and teams met last summer, 2018-19, they set it up and they did it by 4 or 5 or 6 units. Everything was going to be homogeneous, formative and summative assessments were going to be there, and the reflective tactics were very purposeful in there. I was a part of the 10th and 11th grade team curriculum framework audits. And again, it acts as not only a pacing guide, but kind of an understanding. It acts as a consortium of resources. I mean, we have Google links there that lead us into everything else. So it's not just bullet points of what we do, but it's also a collection and a massing of resources for all of us to use along the way. So it's been really, really beneficial.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, of course.
I'm curious, and this that's probably part leads right into this question, that these vertical alignment team meetings that you guys have had. Can you just talk a little bit more about what happens in those meetings? What kind of discussions are taking place? And I'm also curious about the book that you guys read.
We read Focus.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the name of the book. Okay. Focus.
Donna, can you go to the microphone? Because TV land, if your voice doesn't carry, there's going to be no sound, and Patrick's not going to be happy.
Sorry. We read Focus. It talks about keeping the important things important. It was the 3rd edition, I think, maybe 4th.
Michael Schmoker.
Yeah. Great book. And then there's an individual chapter on what's important in science, what's important in social studies, what's important in English, what's important in math. And so we were able to have each individual content look at that. The initial meeting is always looking at that data dive, that initial vertical alignment, looking at the questions, looking at how we did in ELA 6-12. We struggled with argument writing, so we focused on that. And then we look at what the questions in the biology teachers, the middle school biology teacher and the high school biology teachers get together and look at those questions. How did we teach that? That's what we do. And then we looked at all of that through the frame of the Focus book. In vertical alignment. Related arts, we took articles from ASCD because there wasn't content. Spanish, our foreign language, global language teachers looked at the ELA because it's most closely aligned.
Yeah, sure. Again, kind of spearheaded by our deputy principal, Amy Warren, and at the time, department chair, Katie Roberts, now assistant principal, Katie Morgan. We did a lot of great work that was, again, inviting 7th and 8th grade teachers to look at Lexile levels, text complexity. What are we doing with the multiple choice? What are we doing with extended answers? What are we looking in essay writing? What are the common tasks that we expect them to have executed and mastered by 7th grade, by 8th grade, and then 9th grade and upward? So we would start from a 7th grade text and say, not what can he or she not do, but what can he or she do at this point? What have they mastered at the end of 7th grade year? And then we kind of polarize that by looking at a 12th grade essay and say, what can this student, he or she, what can they do? What can they master? What are college professors looking for? And so that's really what kind of bookended the basically our task of every day is when can they embed a quote? How smoothly can they do it? When does the thesis statement look like a three-pronged thesis statement? When does it look like an open-ended one? Length, breadth, style, grammar, utilization, mechanics, all of that stuff. So it really gave us a trajectory of what is happening in seventh grade is followed up and supported by an eighth grade and onward up the way to graduation. So fantastic meetings.
Yeah. Mr. Arthurs, before you walk away.
Oh, sure.
So I know Ms. Schoen gave some qualitative responses to some questions that she proposed to her students. I thought that you had mentioned in your presentation that you also had done some student surveys.
Sure.
Just curious as to what you heard from the kids in their classes.
So that was part of the English 10 conversation, especially the honors English 10. And they went through different units, different formats, different assessments. Again, it was consistent across all the teaching abilities. Again, trying to streamline things both vertically and horizontally. So there's no questions. There's no difference if you have Mrs. Smith's class versus Mr. Smith's class. Everybody's going to have the same stuff. So they got feedback from the students about the units, about what would they change, what would they do. And again, I did the same thing. We value student feedback. We want to make sure that we are hitting them and meeting them where they are in regards to needs. And that qualitative feedback was positive throughout the way.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Someone mentioned the middle school reading that has to happen this summer.
It's done.
That was you, right? Sorry, there's a lot of you up there tonight. Do all of the middle school, high school social studies or ELA courses have summer required reading?
Middle school does.
Middle school does.
High school, we didn't mention it because we don't know for sure who's doing the red bandana.
Yes.
All incoming graders.
Okay.
That's humanities, right?
Yes, all incoming ninth graders in the humanities classes will read The Red Bandana by Tom Rinaldi. And he is actually going to be our author. He's going to be our author visit in December. So yes, and last year we had a reading as well that some of you may or may not remember, All American Boys. And so every year, yes, there's a reading for usually incoming ninth grade humanities. And then Donna has been implementing this the last couple of years for seventh and eighth grade. And I will tell you this, when, my son's going into seventh grade, we ordered the book, Resistance. It's 395 pages. You should have seen his face when he saw this. He said, "Do I really have to read this?" I said, "Yes, you do." So he started today reading.
But Shirley, in addition to the author visit, there's required reading to John's question and all other English language arts classes at the high school,
Yes, I'm
correct?
sorry. Yeah.
Not social.
Not social.
Not
Not
social
social
studies.
studies.
English.
English, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
English, yes.
I got so excited about the red bandana.
Yes.
So yes.
And red bandana.
395 pages.
Yeah.
You're pretty excited.
Red bandana is for incoming freshmen?
Yes.
Other classes are doing it.
And
Oh,
he's.
okay.
There are other courses doing
Yeah.
it because the author visit is Rinaldi.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there are other teachers that have elected to use it because he is the author visit.
Yes.
Gotcha. Global Scholars. So you're seeking 25 students. What happens if more than 25 apply?
We're taking 25, so
Okay.
that's it. No, I don't, right now we are at 11. Is that correct? We're at 11, so we need to do a little bit more recruitment. I just sent an email out right at the end of the school year to see if we can pull a few more from 9th to 10th grade students to see if they're interested. And that's kind of our goal is 25. That's the cohort that they set up as the model because they need to leave school for 4 different events. So we have to be careful with our total amount, but we want a group of 25 to then be able to roll up from year to year. We have the ability to expand in the future, but that's kind of where we're starting.
The 4 times travel, I'm guessing, is something local.
Yeah, so it's Columbus Council of World Affairs, and they host events for our students. It's right downtown. It's not
The
very far.
furthest they went this year was Marysville.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a trip to Honda, there's a trip to Franklin University. where they do some global cultural kinds of things. So, so yes, there are 4 trips, but they're pretty local. Like you said, Katie said, Marysville's the farthest.
I know we have plenty of summer learning or summer travel opportunities, but is that required for this diploma? Is there any international travel that's required for this
It's
diploma?
not required, no, but we're encouraging it. And there's actually a global summit that is, that takes place every year. And we're trying to get some of our global scholar students to participate in that because it's a leadership type of experience. And so I know this year Dave Efron and Shannon May were trying to get some kids to go on that. So we're trying to incorporate that into it, but it's not required.
If you're an incoming sophomore, you can do the program. Juniors and seniors, just no luck, or is there some sort of process where they would be able to do a little extra work and get it?
Well, it's, I don't know, do you want to?
Yeah, they can't. It's
I
a
don't think,
3-year.
it's a 3-year program. So, yeah, we're doing phase 1 or phase 2 next year, and then phase 3, and then as Ken outlined, they have certain requirements at each grade level that they have to do. So I don't think that they can do, now they can still get there's a diploma, it's just not through Global Scholars, but there is you can get an honors diploma. So they could still do that. That's possible, just not through Global Scholars, so.
Okay. What were the 6 districts again on the CPM?
Yes, Gahanna, Westerville, Worthington, New Albany, Tays Valley, and Buckeye Valley.
Okay.
Also Jonathan Alton.
Well, they're not part of our collaborative.
Okay.
Yeah, they haven't attended our collaborative.
I see.
We can reach out to them though.
But
That's
they
what
are
we
in
did.
Central Ohio.
And they
Yeah.
are doing CPM, that's all I know.
Yes, okay, good. We'll reach out to them. Because that's what we did like in February or March. We said, okay, who else in Central Ohio is implementing CPM and who can we contact? So everybody said, I'll contact this person that I know. And so again, we brought, Buckeye Valley just came in at our last meeting. Tays Valley is just implementing phase 1. And so Beth came to our meeting. So we're expanding. So.
All right, last question, and it isn't really about civil discourse and debate, but I think it kind of ties into it. In the social studies progression, I think right now for students to take government, you have to be a senior right now? Or are we going to be, will there be an option at some point to allow juniors to take government?
Yeah, so we've started that conversation this year. I've met with the social studies department twice, and we have some movement on it. Essentially, what we're looking at when we talk about course progression, we're not changing any of the courses that we have. We're changing the order in which students take them. Currently, so American history is taking your junior year, American government your senior year. That's holding back 2 OST tests for your junior and senior year, which kind of throws off our numbers when we look at total points towards 18, students that are at risk, what do you need to retest? How do we intervene? So are we intervening in math or American history? Generally speaking, you see stronger scores in American history or American government. So I would like students to have the opportunity to retest in there and say, can you go from a 3 to a 4 to earn 1 point in American history? Or do we need to try to intervene it for geometry to go from a 2 to a 3, which is much harder for some students? We don't have that opportunity right now. So the conversation is around moving American history to 10th grade and government to 11th grade. That doesn't change any options that we have for students now in the 10th grade. They can take AP Euro is a big concern. AP Euro, you can take that at the same time as American history if you choose, or you can wait till your senior year to take it. So it just creates a little bit more flexibility for our seniors that currently they don't have in the social studies department. We require 4 years, so we know kids are still taking 4 years no matter what. We're just looking at changing the order for that reason.
And for total transparency, this is not the first time we've talked about this.
Right.
We've discussed it for several years now. So they just, Ken's pushing, yes, making a move.
That's the best.
And it may require that at the senior level, we may have to have some additional electives or something like that.
Which we're open to.
Yeah. So more opportunities, yes.
And on the topic of civil discourse, I didn't say anything, but I'm excited about the new initiatives. I think that's going to be great. I look forward to seeing what the debate club and team comes up with. And I also want to talk more and understand more about the Socratic seminar and how that's being applied. So that also sounds great. So I'm excited by all of it, and I appreciate all the effort and support to make that happen. I think that's going to be great.
On behalf of all of us, we want to thank you. You did a tremendous job tonight in your update. It's very informative. It was very well done. Clearly, there's passion, and that passion is important because we have lots of kids in the school district, 5,000 plus, that depend upon that passion every single day to meet their individual needs. So I'm confident we will continue to move forward. Yes, they're always interested in the quantitative data, which will come later. So thank you for the mini preview, but we will get into the weeds later. This was high level, so congratulations to all of you on an outstanding school year and everything that you've done for our kids and for your colleagues across the school district. We're better for each and every one of you, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. It's good. That will take us to 3C, board policy.
So President McClellan, members of the Board of Education, we have 7 policies being presented this evening related to really organizational structures within the school district, school safety, and or specific policies that apply to the student handbooks. They're being executed for action tonight based upon the need to continue to move forward with policy revisions in order to present the student handbooks to you in July for adoption. So the changes that are noted in them, a couple of the policies are over 15 years old, so they have been updated to be modernized, to be brutally honest about it. One policy had a change related to the Elementary and Secondary Education Act that came out of federal statute, so it has also been updated. And then the other policies are really, as I'd indicated, updates to be in alignment for changes associated to the student handbooks that'll be presented in July for formal board adoption in preparation for the first day of school on August 15th. I can answer questions about the individual policies if there are any.
Okay. With none, that will take us to public participation. We have no one this evening. So then I will move or ask or request a motion on superintendent's items 5A through C. Second. Mr. Bush, Mr. Darrow, Mr. Sawyers.
Thank you. Letter 5A for personnel, standard employee action items in preparation for the closure of the fiscal 19 fiscal year for personnel action for resignations or other things that have happened for employees that will not be returning for the 2019-2020 school year. And in addition to that, the continuation of hiring contract renewals that are pursuant to the statutory terms and conditions of the negotiated agreement, either with PLE or through OPSI, for changes to employee salary and step for next year. In addition to that, summer training for camp stipends and or professional development for all the curriculum work that will continue until August in preparation for the 2019-20 school year are the personnel action items that are presented this evening. Letter B for general business, you have 3 action items this evening. The first is to approve the competitive bids that were received from Meta. We do participate in Meta Solutions for the co-op bid associated to food services. We annually do go out to bid for milk and bread, specifically within the food service department. So tonight we approve those as we continue to prepare for 2019-2020. You have some field trips for approvals and then the student teaching agreement for Capital University. But again, happy to answer any questions the board may have. Lastly, a C, I apologize.
Yes. No.
Our board policy, not to be redundant, but again, moving the board policies forward because of student handbooks and the changes that are either applicable through student handbook changes, federal or state statute, or other recommended changes by the administration.
No questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Vice President Darrow?
Yes.
President McClelland?
Yes. That brings us to the end of the meeting. I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Darrow, Mr. Bush, roll call, please.
Vice President Darrow?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
President McClelland?
Yes, we are adjourned. Our next meeting is Monday, June 24th.